I know, Kim, I can't hear you, but I can hear everybody.
Okay.
You're very low, actually.
Oh, okay. I will increase my volume. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce Shift Virtual Conference. We are happy to bring you the final session of the New Normal of Marketing panel discussion. We have so much to discuss, so let's get right into it. First, I'm going to introduce Meri, and I'm sorry if I mess up your last name. Is it Gulyan? Is it Meri Gulyan, who has worked with boutique creative agencies and is now in charge of brand experience for TriNet. Oh, we're having some audio issues. Sorry about this, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm having a little audio issues. Very nice to meet up with you all. My background is I've been on the agency side for about 15 years. I also own a restaurant in Studio City as well. And currently I am the executive director of brand experience and web strategy at a PEO company called TriNet. My background's been primarily on the experience and the marketing end, really focused on when we talk about what marketing, it all starts with that customer experience. So starting from the initial funnel of very, very high to getting really low and the conversion point. So it's the whole funnel. I'm very excited to be speaking today.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to introduce Nick Platt, the founder of Lola Agency. He brings big agency and in-house experience matched with the flexibility, attention, and outside-the-box thinking to his independent firm. Nick, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Nick Platt, the founder of Lola. Lola stands for London, Los Angeles. We founded Lola in 2017, really with the intention of helping brands to engage, evolve, and thrive with their customers. Really making sure there's an emotional connection between them and who they want to serve. Prior to setting up Lola, I was the executive creative director for RAP in Los Angeles, where I worked on the likes of Bank of America and Toyota. 6 years prior to that, I ran their London outfit, where I was working with the likes of Apple and Barclays Bank and a range of non-profits. So I've been basically been a creative for about 30 years, really. So this is it beats working for a living.
Yes. Next, we're going to hear from Veronica Rodriquez with VRod Experiential. She brings next level marketing with innovative and engaging marketing strategies. Let's hear from you, Veronica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica. I worked on the agency side of things too for about 10 years and then was selected to start the experiential division at Snapchat and launched Snapchat's first hardware product, which is called Spectacles. And after Snap, I decided to start my own marketing agency geared specifically towards startup, local, and boutique agencies to help them exponentially launch their brand, product, location, what have you. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Well, that is good info. So we're going to start with some preset questions. The first one is, what are the marketing elements a company must have without fail? Meri, do you want to start with that? Can you hear me okay? I think she's having some audio, so I will text her. But Nick, why don't you start off with that question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, from our chair or from my chair, I think there's four things I think are really paramount in terms of marketing. The first, obviously, is a clear objective about what you want to achieve. You know, what do you want success to look like? Is it about raising awareness for your business? Is it about changing your reputation or improving your reputation, or is it increasing sales? But once you understand what that is, you know, it becomes easy to plan towards it. So to take the time to make sure you have that objective clearly stated, I think is really, really important. The second thing really is the idea of a cohesive and engaging story. There's a stat out there that's the idea that 80% of people love stories and love storytelling, and they sort of wish that brands were better at doing it. So, you know, that idea of being emotionally engaged with a brand and striving to find something authentic about the product in all the brands they're going to buy products from, I think is really important. So to spend the time to craft your story is something that I would recommend. Obviously, an up-to-date website, not so much just because of COVID, but in general. I mean, that's it. It's your storefront, really. It's basically where people are going to come to see you first time. It's the environment that you have more control over in a digital world than anything else. So to make sure it's up-to-date and on point is really, really important. And then I think a social media presence as well, in whatever format that might take, is something of importance to really drive home a continual dialogue about who you are, allowing people to understand more about you, your personality and your values, and really to give you a platform to share your expertise. So I would suggest those were the 4 things from my chair that I'd be looking for.
Thank you. I'm going to have Meri. We've got a finger gestures now because our audio is a little low.
Thing too is I think the story is also very, very important. There's a level of being able to tell that in a really, really quick, cohesive way. To get a little bit more tactical, what that means is your website, making sure it's really clear and on point what your offerings are, right? Making sure that when you land on that, within seconds, you understand what the offering is, how to get in contact, ensuring that your listings are correct. This all goes into the search engine side of it. So making sure you're listed correctly. There's tools where you can get on various directories and make sure your phone number, your address, the way people find you, your offers, they are all posted exactly the same across the board. So making sure that's correct. And then also content. Content is such a big play, and that goes into social content, into SEO content, into just speaking about what your company does. As we all know, search engines focus on keywords. Your websites have specific ranks given by Google. Your pages have ranks given by Google. So these things really do matter. And it's not necessarily, I know when we say content, sometimes it freaks people out because they think they have to go write 1,000 articles a month, but it's not about that. It's really about taking intent at the different funnels, because some people are higher up in the funnel, some people are lower, and having information about based and covering their intent. So having information that would serve the people at different funnels. So, and then the last thing I would say is if you have reviews or something you are asking for, make sure you're either responding to reviews if it's a public forum, or if you are using a platform like Trust Radius or whatnot, make sure to ask for reviews as well. So those things count because that's a trust factor.
Okay, Veronica.
That might have been more than 4, but.
Veronica, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I absolutely love what both of you guys said, and I chime in with everything that they said and said, yep, totally agree with that. Speaking though directly to some of your local and boutique and even startups, one thing that is so simple, but I see it so many times when working with those types of clients, is that there needs to be a consistency with branding. I'll see memes and different fonts and different colors and different target audience and different humor. And it's just for the consumer, they come and it looks very piecemealed. It doesn't look like a strategy. You're not easy to identify. So I would say that there needs to be a really strong, consistent branding, and companies that have excelled have done that really well, that they've really honed in on who their ideal client is. Second, I would say compelling digital presence. That was already said. And the other thing is, as a company, you really need to understand your differentiating points, but you need to be able to communicate that to your audience, your strong differentiating points. What sets you apart from the other nail salon, in your area? What sets you apart from the other Italian restaurant that's right down the street? What separates you from being the best home improvement company? So you really need to express and highlight your differentiating points. So those would be my little add-ons to what was already said.
Fantastic. This is great information. Hopefully people are able to hear me a little bit better. The next question, Nick, what are the 3 questions you should ask yourself when creating a marketing strategy?
Yeah, again, I think this is something we've touched on before, but I think number one is, defining who that target audience is that you want to talk to and understanding what's important to them. Now, obviously, based on the knowledge you have of your best customers now, how they behave, the things that they want from you, I think that should start to give you an idea of putting that together. But I think number one is, what is that target audience? What do they look like? What do they like? How does my brand and my products fit with their lives in a funny sort of way? It's like, how do I connect with them on a level that's important to them, really? So that's important for me. And again, as Veronica said, I think this is something that's got to be echoed again, is, what makes my product and service stand out from the competition? So beyond just a great price or great value, what is it about my brand and me as a business makes people and buy from? Is it my expertise? Is it because I'm prompt? Is it cleanliness of my environment? What are those things? What are those extra values that really bring the whole story together and make you and make you viable, really? And then I think, again, just on top of that, what other values? I mean, this is sort of a point 2A in a funny sort of way, but again, really digging deep into those softer parts of the business, the things that are human around you, that make people want to come and work for you. At the end of the day, I think we've got to remember, people buy from people. So what can you think that's in your arsenal that you can bring to the table that really elevates your value beyond your product?
Thank you. Okay, so Meri, we're on to you.
Thank you. My first thing is also, who is your audience? I'm going to pivot though, because that was going exactly off of what Nick was saying there. But that is truly the most important thing to understand, is who's your audience. Some other things though to understand more on the tactical side is what channels are driving them to you. So if you know that, if you're doing out of home, or if you're doing TV, or if you're doing more social media, like, where is that audience? Important to understand as well. And also what's happening in the landscape currently. We do a lot of competitive and comparative analysis just to see what's happening out there. You can learn a lot by just monthly monitoring what's happening. If you are at a place where you have a lot of competitors, it's actually kind of nice to see what they're testing and doing as well, so that you can take guidance and not necessarily have to test those things yourself, because you can see that they're doing it and losing it. So it's a really good way of understanding what's happening in the landscape. And then I think what's really important when you're building a marketing strategy is to look at your environment of just the world today and say, am I going to fall on deaf ears, or is this going to be relevant to what's happening today? More than ever, that seems to be the case. So it's something that we may have not done previously, that we definitely now are saying, is that sensitive enough? Are we pushing too much? Like, what is our tone? Are we shifting the way our brand speaks to our audience because of what's happening? But really understanding what's happening today is important.
Fantastic. And Veronica, can you expand on that, please?
Sure. So I'll give a massive social media thumbs up to what they just said, what Nick and Meri said before, and say, what is the most effective industry target market? Where are my, I can't talk. Where is my ideal client at? So understanding Pinterest and understanding Instagram, understanding these different platforms that are available, and really putting into effort into the platform that's most effective. I would also like to say, once again, going back to boutique, local, and startups, is what's the consumer purchasing experience like? I just had a consulting experience with a client. They sold products online, and when it came time for people to adding things into the cart, they had to keep going all the way back, like 2 or 3 pages back, and then coming back. And then when it actually came time to purchasing, then from there it was taking them off their website to PayPal. So it was one of those things where, for the consumer, seeing how many things were added to a cart and then taken out of a cart, and then people just getting frustrated and walking away, that's business that you work so hard to get onto your website or to your purchasing point, and then to have a really troubling experience with purchasing a product, I would say to look through your eyes of the consumer of what their purchasing experience is like. And then lastly, the thing that I absolutely nerd out over is analytics. So having KPIs, having goals, check in at the 15-day mark, check in at the 1 month mark, the 3 month mark, and go through things like your Google Analytics, what keywords are landing people to you. Maybe you notice that your in-cart purchase was $30. Maybe think of a strategy of how you can up your consumer purchase to a $60 price point. Maybe that's a BOGO deal, buy two, get one free. Always monitor your analytics and understand maybe a beauty blog brought in one beauty blog brought in a lot of clients for you, or a giveaway. Track things, make things very trackable and measurable so that you know how to pivot and switch or drop or increase in certain areas.
I have a feeling you're asking our question there about.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat down the side. Okay, so the question is, what are the 5 elements that every website should have? Okay, so from my chair, I think number 1 is a decent about page. Now, we've all talked earlier on about your authentic story and having a place where you can tell who you are, where your company's come from, the values that you hold dear, and that's all on the about page. So that's a really great way of sharing, the behind the front door of who you are. So that's a really important thing for me. Again, back to what was touched on before in terms of measurement on your website, I feel it's really important to have prominent contact information. So this will be anything from phone numbers to address the business hours. But, a lot of people are just coming to the website to check a phone number. And if it's not readily available, that sort of user experience will sort of not end in a sell, let's say. The other thing then is a mobile-friendly experience. I think over half of all website interactions now are through mobile phones. So you've got to make sure that your website now works as effectively on a phone as it does on a desktop. The experience should feel seamless and the same. There's probably a little test you can do. You call up your own website now on your phone and have a look at it and ask yourself, is that interacting the way I want it to? Is the user flow correct? Is it easy to understand? I think if not, then you probably need to update your website. Again, I think what was mentioned earlier on, again, is really important for an element, is basically optimization of your website to be found. SEO, as it were, is really, really important. It's all about driving quantity and quality of leads. So get that bit right. It can be quite a complex thing, and there's lots of resources outlined for you to look at the things that relate to you, but SEO I think is most important. And then I think is important is a blog. Again, we talked earlier on about having a social media presence, the idea of having an opportunity to talk more regularly with people, and I think that's what a blog could do for you. It might seem a bit daunting as a thing to start with, but again, just remember it as a almost a free advert for you to share your expertise with the world, really. So those, I think, are 5 things that I consider important.
Thanks, Nick. Awesome. Thanks. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the difference of design and architecture. I think people think that when you say design your website, you think about the face of it, and nobody really thinks about the backside of it and the architecture of it, which, because I come from that world, I'm going to say is more important. They're both equally important, but I just want to note that they're different. The architecture of your website is the bones. If you think about it as you're building a house, it's your blueprint, right? It's where does the window go? Where are the doors? Where's the bathrooms? Like you wouldn't put maybe 2 bathrooms next to each other with a door going through. So what you want to do is you want to lay out, literally site map out your pages. Look at, does this make sense? If somebody's coming to the first thing, my services, are they lumped together in a way that would make sense to somebody? So you want to get your architecture down sound before you move into your actual user interface design, which is really what people notice most because it goes into the branding and design elements. They're both, again, equally important, but really, really focus on nailing your architecture. That also serves your navigation, which follows through as well. The other thing, and I'm going to tag on to Nick, is you can actually test your mobile pages. If you just Google mobile friendly test, Google has their own test where they'll run it through a test and tell you and give you a score and tell you what is not done right and what's done right. You could do that for desktop and mobile. I highly encourage you to do that. Site speed is one of those things that it will test, and that is really, really important. People bounce off your website if your pages aren't loaded within, I think it's at most now, it's up to about 6 seconds at most. But if you have pages that are loading because you have a giant image on your website and you don't realize it's 4 megabytes and it's going to cause load issues, that's definitely a big problem. So run your website through the Google test. They're free tests. You can publicly go test out any website you want. I highly, highly encourage that. The other thing is just a really actionable, when you have contact, make those things really actionable. Instead of saying, learn more, say chat now, speak now, order now. So make those actionable to the user. And I would highly encourage that you always consider the user being proactive versus the company being proactive or being reactive in that sense. So instead of saying, book something with us on our time, you want to say, we're here for you. Give them times, put them in control. So I would highly recommend that. And then the last thing is just personalize things when you can. There's tools out there. Triblio is one. There's a ton of them. Optimizely, where you can actually personalize experiences. So if it's the first time they came to your site or the second time they came to your site, we're able to track that through cookies, and you can give them different messaging. It's a little bit more intense and down the funnel of marketing, I'd say, but it does work, and I've seen some great executions of that. I think we're having another audio issue. Yeah.
We're having another.
Yeah.
Thank you for that great answer, Meri. Our next question is from Shauna. Shauna asks, how is it best to keep customers, clients, members engaged without bothering them? Like, for instance, emails, meetings, check-ins, etc. What are the best strategies for that?
I'll be happy to answer
This is
that,
for
Shauna.
anybody.
I think that's I'll be happy to answer that. I love that question because I think a lot of people do feel like they annoy their clients. The biggest thing that I would recommend is to offer tips. It can be in the wheelhouse of what you offer. So if you're a yoga studio, instead of always letting them know when classes are, what the discounts are, this, that, and the other, maybe offer them a lifestyle tip. Maybe offer them other workshops that are going on in the area. Maybe it's just a heartfelt blog about how you serve the community and what you're involved with. Think of your content, once again, from the consumer's perspective on what is interesting to them. So if they care about makeup, well-being, this, that, and the other, let's just talk about that and offer tips, suggestions, things that add value. That's the easiest way to stay relevant and stay in their line of sight and be that contact that they go to, that trusted source, because you not only were always trying to sell them things, but you were adding value to their life in the form of a tip or suggestion or just showing yourself in a different manner for your business.
Yeah, can I add on to that, Veronica? Because it's absolutely right. Like we say, people from people, and it doesn't have to be a sell all the time. It's a communication, and it's about being useful for your customers. And I think the thing to add is you've got to learn over time as well. So what you do on day 1 might be different what you do at day 30. You know what I mean? Your communication with your customers will evolve as your connection with your customers evolves as well. So it's something to be mindful of. There isn't just one method of communication that's going to be the way to not be intrusive. It's how you find that balance between social posts, maybe email blasts, being useful, and actually being promotional when it's appropriate. We got another.
Still muting. I'm sorry, guys. As an organization who communicates with its members on a weekly and a daily basis, how many emails a day are too many, or weekly too many? As we promoted for this event, we leading up to the event, we sent, we would send an email out once a day, and then we did the social media postings on the side. But we only had one complaint about sending out an email once a day. But how much is too much? What is just right? Everybody else is sending a lot of emails. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I think it comes down to not just cadence; it comes down to content. So, I mean, we've got some clients that will hit you every day of the week, but they'll be talking about very different subjects in that period of time, or someone that will have 3 a week, but it will be a sort of a reminder of the previous email. So there's sort of like different cadences for different verticals, I suppose. But again, I think it's the balance, back to what we were saying before, it's the balance of content that's important, not just the delivery mechanism,
Just to add to that too, I think what we do, and it's a nice exercise, is we literally will take a whiteboard, and when we have a campaign or we're doing some for marketing, is highlight every single channel we want to touch with what sort of content, and then we mix it up, right? We make sure, like both Veronica and Nick said, we don't ever send out exactly the same thing to the same audience all the time. So, but you want to look at that macro vision, because if you don't, you will end up duplicating things sometimes, and it might get a little bit overwhelming. So I would highly recommend to do a macro. If you're thinking about doing some promotion, look at all your channels at the same time versus piecemealing them together.
Anybody else want to chime in? Okay, our next question. Go, please.
Oh, okay. The one thing, it kind of relates to marketing and as a whole, but I always use it when I'm dealing with new clients, specifically for social media, is think of yourself as what I call the power of 5. So 5 different elements of your business that you can highlight, right? So if you're a spray tan company, you don't always want to be posting, one leg tan, one leg pale, and every single post is the same thing. It's just maybe a different person or a different body part. Nick had spoke about it, but you want to highlight where you're located. So if you're located in Sherman Oaks, show images on your social media of the surrounding community. So that could be one of your power of 5s. Then 2, the aesthetics of your place. So if I'm going to go get a spray tan, which I'm not because I'm dark skinned, but if I was to get a spray tan, I want to know that the facility that I'm going in is clean. The people that are working there look friendly. So that the equipment that's using is up to date. So images of that. Reviews could be another power of 5. So you want to think of 5 different things that when you're building out your strategy, your campaigns, your branding, your this, that, and the other, that you're highlighting at different times one of the 5. And that will keep your engagement level with your consumer a lot higher, because they're not knowing or expecting that every time you post, it's always of a spray tan leg, one tan, one pale. And we've seen it with our friends and our lack of engagement. They're always posting pictures of maybe their kids or their dog, and then you just lose interest because it's always the same content. Yeah. So as a whole in marketing, really focus on the power of 5. And if you can't come up with 5, come up with at least 3 things that you can always shift to when you're sending out messages and trying to stay not relevant, but engaging with your consumers.
That was a great response. Thank you. Really insightful. Our next question is from Tammy. Tammy asks, is it worth it to pay for Google rankings? Anyone jump in?
I'll chime in on this one and say specifically, since I work with local boutique and startups and their budgets are not as grand as working for a big corporation, I don't necessarily know what I would say, is it worth it? But I would take a step back and explore other areas that maybe you haven't put your full energy into it. So what I mean by that is, do you have a compelling video that's part of the storytelling of your business? Are you creating content that's shareable so it has legs on its own? Are you working with influencers so that you're reaching different audiences in the same type of target audience? Like, have you explored other things that are more cost effective before you really, I don't want to say bite the bullet, but before you go all in and spend thousands of dollars on Google, because that's really what it's going to take to make waves. That's, once again, that's my response, and that's dealing with the clients that I work with that tend to have a lot smaller of a budget.
I could take that on as well. It depends, right? So you have to think about, and I think the person who asked this is really talking about obviously paid ads. The most important thing to understand is, are you bidding against other people? So the first thing I would do is Google competitors, like Google all of them, or I'm sorry, Google yourself first. And are people buying your name? Because people could purchase your name as well, right? So they can bid against you. And if they're not, then you don't need to necessarily pay for ads for your name, unless you are not ranking well enough. If you own the domain and you have and your name is everywhere on your website, you should be the first organic listing. If you're not, though, then you may want to consider paying for it. But if nobody's really bidding against your name and you're ranking number one, then no, you don't want to do that. The other thing then you want to go, so that's the brand terms. You want to look at, select the non-brand terms. And there's also lots of tools that are free. There's SEMrush, it's paid, but there's a free trial. There's Mod. There's all these other tools where you can go look at keywords in your market, and then go look at the search volume of those keywords. Again, you can find this out for free. And then pay for a light version of it to begin with. But look at what people are actually bidding on. And if people are bidding highly competitively, I would say, yes, you may want to go into that world. But that's why your organic and the SEO and the content is also so important. And that's what Veronica, I think, was alluding to as well, is that once you have all that, it helps your organic search ranking, which is a non-paid, and that's based on all the other things you're doing on your website. Are you offering things that really help your SEO? Are you offering infographics, e-guides? There's all those different pieces. And somebody recently also asked about collecting email addresses. That is also another great way. I could see that about, like, when you offer e-guides, when you give your audience something, it's easier for them to say, I'll give you my email address, because it's an exchange versus asking for an email address just to ask for it. But we'll come back to that. But I would say that look at your competition. What are they doing? Are they bidding against you? Look at your keywords, and then look at where you're ranking organically. The better you rank organically, the less you spend on paid. It kind of helps each other out. So the reason why they're all important, but yeah, so it's a very custom question, I think, depending on how people rank against you.
That's a great answer.
Well, just to transition into Kevin's question about, what are the most effective ways to collect the email addresses of visitors to your site? Meri kind of mentioned it. Does anybody else have thoughts on that?
Well, I think absolutely, Meri's right. It's about a value exchange. You can't just ask for something without giving something in return. So again, the idea of what is the value exchange you're going to give to somebody in terms of your expertise beyond your product that you might want to give. Is it just infographics, or is it something more than that? Whatever is most appropriate for your business, you have to think about that. I think also then very clearly signposting what you're asking for and how you're asking for it as well is something important. It's not just the fact that you can get someone to say, yes, this is valuable to me, I'll give you my email address. It's guiding them to do that at the same time. If the form is hidden and it doesn't look very good, you're less likely to fill it in. So you've got to make sure also the UX of getting to fill in the email address in is good and clear.
I just want to add, don't ask for too much information when you're just looking for an email address, because the more fields you have, the higher your drop off is going to be.
Yeah, right.
So you don't want to collect demographics in that way? Or is there another way to collect age group and gender and those kind of metrics?
Well, I mean, it doesn't all have to be one contact, right? I mean, that's the point. If you're talking about trying to make sure you don't have a huge drop-off rate, you as minimal fields as possible. But then what's the follow-up from that makes the conversation a little deeper, makes the conversation a bit more ready to give more information at that point. So again, it's not just one size fits all, but remember, it's a conversation and a value exchange all the time. This information is important to that person. How they give it to you is if they feel as though they're getting something back. So it doesn't have to be one hit. It could be over 2 hits, or, you know, it could be built around a preference center where you feel compelled to give more of your information because you're really vested in what the promise of the product might be. So again, depending on your business and what you're going to sell, there are different ways of collecting more than just the email.
Well, and it sounds, you know, very focused on cultivating the relationship with the client, with the person, rather than it being a transactional exchange. It's about the long term, the immediate ROI.
Yeah. Well, I mean, COVID has made us all very much more appreciative of human beings, right? And it is about a transaction. It's not just about dollars and cents. It has to be something more human to human. So yeah, I think it's really important that there is a connection beyond just the product.
How do we think that the media is going to be impacted by this? I know that's a little different from marketing, but certainly media informs what is in trend and what is not, and it does affect advertising to a certain extent. Do we see advertising changing? Certainly we're seeing, if you just look at commercials and ads, you're seeing that advertisers are responding to the current circumstances, and so I see a lot of messaging having to do with safety and making sure that their customers feel comfortable coming, not just that the business is allowed to be open, but that your customer base is going to feel comfortable coming back. So I mean, that changing in any way?
Well, I mean, right now, I think like travel and airline advertising is down by 87%. Car advertising is down by 48%. I mean, these sort of bastions that were America, right, are vastly changing. And what I feel it is, obviously now is the time for safety, because I think, as we all know, we're in this together, so we have to be prudent and safe. But I feel beyond this, there will be the want of an experience. So I don't know whether necessarily the 30-second TV spot will be the lead horse in advertising down the line. You know, it will be more engaging, more experiential, longer form digital experiences, I think, will be coming to the fore. I know we mentioned TikTok earlier on. I mean, they're making additions to their platform for businesses now. The introduction of AR. There's a lot of different ways now of giving people experiences that I think, I mean, the whole playing field's different now, you know.
I'm looking forward to the day when AR becomes more commonplace with users. That's really going to be a game changer. It already is, but
Absolutely.
When it becomes widely accessible, it's gonna change the game.
Yeah.
I think we've asked all the questions so far. Are there any other topics, panelists, that you'd like to touch on, that you think that our participants want to know about marketing moving forward, and any nuggets of wisdom to share are welcome.
I think there was something really interesting that Veronica touched on earlier, right at the top, really, about brand and getting your brand type. I think it's as old as the hills but it's a very overlooked thing. People, you know, they think a logo and some colors is a brand. It isn't. You know, it's a lot deeper than that. It's about your value. And I feel as if you spend more time or a little extra time on getting that bit of your brand and your business right, the rest becomes a lot easier, you know, because it will all fall into line. There'll all be the right reasons for doing what you're doing. So I think that would be my message to anyone is, you know, don't overlook what seems to be a nice to have, as it were. It's a fundamental, and it needs to be done correctly.
Our next question is ADA compliance. Is it real for a small business, or is it a scam?
Oh, it's real. Yeah. I mean, like restaurant chains and stuff like that. You know, if your website isn't ADA compliant and something goes wrong, you're liable. If someone misreads this food contains peanuts, you know, that's an issue. So the website has to be ADA compliant. I think that's it is something that everyone should be mindful of. But again, whomever's designing and building the website for you, they should be able to advise you on what's right, what's wrong.
Yeah, there's also something about, there's a lot of trolls who will go around and find websites that are not ADA compliant and actually sue them. This happened to Beyonce's website among a very long list. So this does happen where people will actively try to find websites. Do we think it's usually with small businesses? No, because they're trying to go for the big money. But you should be, just in case, you know, that is something that does happen. So it's not. And a lot of the ADA compliance pieces are on the back end, making sure your website has alt tags and image tags, and it's so screen readers can read them. And what ADA compliance is, in case people aren't aware of, is just to make sure that anybody with like a hearing disability or other disabilities are able to access the website. There are also ways that if you can't put ADA compliance, and don't quote me on this, I would run this by nature, but if, let's say, your videos aren't transcripted, you can, I believe, provide a phone number for somebody to call you for you to actually transcribe it in person as a fallback. So there's some fallbacks you can put into place, but definitely I would agree with Nick of making sure whoever's creating the website, you put part of that on them.
And that's not just a trend digitally. ADA compliance is a big issue with storefronts and brick and mortars, and they have the same issues with trolls coming and going into a store and looking for and identifying small infractions and litigating them. So it's just ADA in general, not just online, but online and in person. It's always an issue, and you always want to try to set yourself up for compliance. And there's ways to do that to protect yourself, to protect your exposure on that end. What are the most important factors to know or questions to ask when figuring out what your target client is?
Wow. I think, important factor, again, it goes back to what do you want to achieve? Right. So number one, what is the goal? Is it just revenue? Is it awareness? Whatever it might be, understanding what your goal is. Looking at your existing company or customers that exemplify what you're looking for. So understand how they behave, what things they're into, how they talk. I mean, we ask 4 questions. What do they find useful? Where do they go to for utility? What do they find funny? In terms of what makes them laugh and smile. So again, getting a sense of their personality and their tone of voice. What things do they stand up to? Or stand up for? What do they gravitate towards out there in the real world? So these are all sort of factors beyond just demographics in terms of building a picture for your ideal target customer. Obviously, it's going to be built on something you already know, and I feel as though looking hard at who your best customers are now to tell you what you want to moving forward, really.
I could tack on to that as well. I think some of the things we look at, we build personas, which is what I think Nick is also alluding to, is you build to basically understand what that persona might look like. But you want to outline some challenges they've run into. If you, let's say you're a B2B company that focuses in legal, right? And you want to understand like who comes to your, who in an organization would be the person to reach out? What channels are they on? Where are they going to find information? And really kind of paint their lifestyle and their picture. And when it gets into pieces of personas, it's not just directly related to your services. It's literally like, what are things that might drive this person crazy? And what are things that they really enjoy? And that doesn't mean in business, it's just a general profile of that person. And then from there, you start mapping out their path to how, your service might relate back and create a whole visual diagram of that.
I also want to say, going back to analytics, I think it's always healthy to have some kind of schedule of looking to see where your consumers are coming from, who is buying your product, who's coming in, because I've dealt with clients and they thought that their target audience was one type of person, and then come to find out that it was completely the other, right? So they thought they had a very male saturated product, and it was a very active lifestyle, this, that, and the other, and it skewed the complete opposite. So, you have to come to that point where you go, do I shift my efforts somewhere else, or do I continue to go in the direction that I thought the ethos of the brand was, right? And really comb through those analytics. And I've seen it. We saw it in the early 90s when fashion was geared towards one, like a certain type of person, and then you found more urban cultures buying, Tommy Hilfiger and things like that. Like there's companies that are trying to attribute things to different people, and then it's completely off grid. So that's why it's always healthy to know who your actual client is, and understanding why they love your product, why they come to you. Is it location? Is it convenience? Is it price point? Is it you as an owner? Really understanding your clients.
So true. Well, we are at 11:50. So we have a few more minutes to go. What is remarketing? What is remarketing?
So basically, if you've sent a message to a customer and they've not responded, but you want to hit them again with something, you want to repurpose that messaging and send it to them, or send messages out to other people based on what you've learned from that one. That's remarketing.
Thank you.
Can we get specific, a little bit more specific to that too? So if a person visits a specific page on your website, right, just as a legal, let's say they visit your risk compliance website page. What you can actually do is create an ad specific to risk compliance and serve that exact ad back that goes exactly back to that same page or to another page you want to drive them, knowing that they came from that. So it's using your website data where they came into, and then saying, okay, it's a warmer lead at that point as well, or warmer down the funnel, because they know who you are, which is really important. And then it's what's the message you want to give them. So whatever, you can create ads per page, you can do one globally, you could kind of decide what fits best for you. But if I'm looking, we own a pizzeria, and if somebody comes and looks at a specific pizza, I could technically serve them an ad for that exact pizza to make them hungrier. So it's all about how you position it, but it's really knowing this person knows who you are, they've been on your website, now what do you want to give them, what kind of content? And you can make it very specific based on website data.
Yeah, I've seen that on Facebook a lot with the ads, and all you have to do is buy one thing, and then
that's what you're getting.
It magically shows up. It's amazing. Gotta love analytics. Do you think that outdoor advertising right now is still effective? Billboards, print advertising, essentially.
Well, for a couple of our clients, they're proving to be, but in conjunction with like other geolocated media, so radio. So there's a good combination of out-of-home radio and digital buys around certain locations that seem to really, really work. So I would say out-of-home still has a place, and then digital out-of-home as well that can become, changed by context in terms of weather or something like that. That's really effective sort of stuff as well. But it's certainly still part of the marketing mix for sure.
I agree with that. We actually just recently started shifting some of our, are looking at maybe more radio because people are going back into their cars. And so a little bit of that, yeah. TV is an interesting one because it's hard to shoot new commercials, obviously. So there's a little bit of like, what can we reuse there? But it's not necessarily going away. It's also interesting to look into streaming platform commercials and YouTubes and more than your traditional way you think about TV.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for coming to our marketing panel today. I want to thank Meri, Nick, and Veronica. Just a great talk. I hope that this helps all of you in how you're creating your marketing strategies and how you're putting your name out there and what adjustments we all need to make to get that message out there, because we're going to have to be adaptive, especially in this current environment, whether or not our storefront is open or we're working from home and it's primarily delivery services. We have to be adaptable right now. We're still on the main stage, right? So I'm just going to go into, we hope that you were able to get a lot of important information that can help you and your company thrive in the new business landscape. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, Westfield and Wells Fargo, for their support of this event. And I want to thank our exhibitors. If you haven't checked out their booths, you click on in the exhibition exhibitor area: Sylvan Learning, Childcare Resource Center, Evolution Solutions, and Wells Fargo. Check out their information over there. I want to thank them for being exhibitors. And right now, if you would like to, you can stick around, and we're going to have an opportunity to do some speed networking over the next hour. All you need to do is go into the lobby area and click on networking on the left menu bar to join. I want to thank you again and have a wonderful day. We wish you all success and hope in the information, strategies, and future collaborations will make the rest of 2020 thankful, fruitful, and again, thank you to all of our speakers, our keynote, Karen Strack, and all of our moderators for joining us today. And thank you for attending Shift. So head on over to the lobby for speed networking. That'll be starting in 4 minutes.